Carol told me on a Tuesday, which is a detail I keep coming back to. Not a Friday, when you brace for bad news. Not a Sunday, when the whole world feels like it's holding its breath before Monday. A Tuesday, over coffee, like she was telling me the gutters needed cleaning. "I think I need some space," she said. I remember setting my mug down very carefully, the way you set something down when your hands aren't sure they'll cooperate. "Space," I repeated. "What kind of space?" "Not a divorce, Daniel. I'm not asking for that." She wrapped both hands around her own mug like it was the only warm thing left in the kitchen. I don't know who I am outside of being your wife, being their mother." She didn't say the kids' names. She didn't have to. 24 years, and I knew exactly which silence she meant. "I want to find out, before it's too late to matter." I wanted to ask her what she thought was going to happen to her out there, in that space, that she couldn't find in here, in this kitchen, with me. But I didn't. I have spent my whole life not asking the question that scares me most. And that morning was no exception. "How long?" I said instead. Not a question. I didn't have the strength to put a question mark on it. "I don't know. A few months, maybe. I'll get an apartment, something small, just for a while." She reached across the table and touched my hand, and it was the gentlest thing that had ever felt like a wound. "This isn't about you failing at something. I need you to hear that." I heard it. I didn't believe it. Those are two very different things, and no one warns you about the gap between them. She was gone by the following weekend, and the house did that thing houses do when a person leaves. It got louder in its quiet. I'd walk past her side of the closet, still half full, because she said she didn't want to take everything, didn't want it to feel final, and I'd stand there a second too long, like the dresses might explain something the woman wearing them hadn't. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner standing at the counter because sitting at the table alone felt like a kind of confession I wasn't ready to make, even to myself. Renee called on the fourth night. "I'm not choosing sides," she said, before I'd even said hello properly. "I want you to know that first." Nobody said anything about sides. Carol told me about the space. A pause, the kind Renee has always been good at. She was a therapist for 11 years before she left the practice, and she still talks like someone who knows exactly how long silence needs to sit before it does its work. "I wanted to check on you. Is that allowed?" "I don't know what the rules are anymore, Renee. Nobody handed me a rule book." "Well," I could hear her exhale, half a laugh, half something sadder. "For what it's worth, I don't think there is one. I think you're just supposed to survive it and figure out the rules after." I almost told her that sounded like something a good therapist would say, before I remembered she used to be exactly that, and that maybe it wasn't a line. Maybe it was just true. She showed up 2 nights later with a casserole dish covered in foil, standing on my porch in the kind of early autumn light that makes everything look a little more forgiving than it is. "I made too much," she said, which we both knew wasn't true. Renee had never made too much of anything by accident in her life. "You didn't have to do this." I know I didn't. She held the dish out like an offering, or maybe like a shield. "Are you going to let me in? Or are we doing this on the porch like a couple of teenagers who aren't sure they're allowed inside?" I laughed, actually laughed the first time in 11 days, and stepped back to let her through. We ate at the kitchen table, the one I'd been avoiding, and it didn't feel like a confession after all. It felt like something closer to relief. She asked about work. I asked about her garden, the one she'd started after her own divorce 2 years back. The one she said kept her hands busy when the rest of her wasn't sure what to do. We talked about everything except the one thing sitting quietly in the middle of the table between us, The way the biggest things in a room always find a way to take up the least amount of space, until they don't. Not once in 3 hours did either of us say Carol's name. I noticed it around 10 o'clock when Renee stood to leave, and I walked her to the door, and the silence of it, the absence of my wife's name in a house that used to be full of it, sat in my chest like something I didn't have a word for yet. "Same time next week?" she said, already halfway out the door, casserole dish tucked under her arm. Empty now. "Yeah," I said. "Same time." She smiled at me then, just a little longer than a friend checking in on a friend usually smiles, and I told myself I imagined it. I stood in the doorway and watched her taillights disappear down the street, and for the first time in 11 days, the house behind me didn't feel quite so loud. I didn't know yet that I should have been more afraid of the quiet. The Tuesday dinners became a Wednesday habit, and then no particular day at all. Just whatever evening one of us texted first. "I made too much again," she'd write, though we'd stopped pretending that was ever really true. Carol called on Sundays, mostly. 10, 15 minutes. She'd found an apartment near the university, was taking a pottery class, sounded lighter than I'd heard her in years, and I hated how much that fact sat sideways in my chest. Glad for her and grieving all at once, the way you can love someone and still feel yourself losing your grip on them. "You sound good," I told her on one of those calls. "I feel good," she said, and there was a brightness in it I hadn't heard since before the kids left, before the two of us became two people who mostly discussed schedules and gutters. "How are you doing? Really?" "I'm managing," which was true in the way that things are true when you leave out the parts that would complicate them. I didn't mention Renee. I told myself there was nothing to mention. Renee had a way of asking questions that got underneath things. Maybe it was the 11 years of practice, or maybe it was just who she'd always been. I couldn't say anymore where the training ended and the woman began. "Do you miss her?" she asked one night, halfway through a bottle of wine that had appeared on the table without either of us discussing it. "Or do you miss being married? Is there a difference?" "There's a big difference." She turned her glass slowly by the stem, watching the wine catch the light. "I missed being married for a long time before I ever let myself admit I didn't miss my husband." That's a hell of a thing to say. It's a hell of a thing to figure out. She looked up at me, and there was something steady and unguarded in her face that I wasn't prepared for. "I'm just saying, don't confuse the two. It'll wreck you if you do." I told myself she was talking about her own marriage. I told myself that for the rest of the night, even as some quieter part of me understood, she might have been talking about mine. It became easy in a way that frightened me a little if I let myself look at it straight on, which I mostly didn't. She knew how I took my coffee. I knew which songs made her go quiet mid-sentence, the ones that belonged to a version of her life she didn't talk about much. We fell into the specific, comfortable shorthand of two people who have decided, without saying so, that they understand each other. This is just friendship, I told myself. Most nights, driving home from wherever we'd ended up, or standing at my own sink doing the dishes she'd insisted on leaving for me to handle. This is just two people getting each other through something hard. Carol would understand. Carol would probably even be glad I have someone. I believed it mostly. Or I believed it, which at the time felt close enough. It was a Thursday. I remember because she'd made a joke about how we'd finally broken our streak of pretending it was always Tuesday, and we were standing in my kitchen doing the thing we always did. The dishes, her drying while I washed, the two of us falling into the easy quiet of people who've stopped needing to fill every silence. I said something about Carol's pottery class, some small offhand thing, and Renee went still for just a second, the kind of stillness you'd miss if you weren't looking for it, and I wasn't sure why I was looking for it. "You okay?" I asked. I'm fine. She set the towel down. It's just strange sometimes, being the one who hears about her life secondhand, through you, instead of from her. You could call her. I do. Something crossed her face, quick and complicated, gone before I could name it. It's not the same as this, though. As what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached over and put her hand on my forearm, the way she might have 100 times before, the way friends touch each other without meaning anything by it. Except this time, she left it there. A beat too long. 2 beats. Long enough that the air in the kitchen changed shape around it. Long enough that neither of us moved to end it. Long enough that I found myself looking down at her hand instead of at her face, because I wasn't sure what I'd do if I looked at her face. "Renee, I should go," she said, too quickly, pulling her hand back like she'd only just noticed where it was. "It's late." "Yeah," I said, though it wasn't. Not really. Probably a good idea. She gathered her things without meeting my eyes, and I walked her to the door the way I always did. And neither of us said what had just happened, because neither of us had a name for it yet. Or maybe we did. And saying it out loud was the one thing we still weren't ready to do. I stood in the doorway long after her car pulled away, my forearm still warm where her hand had been, and understood, with a kind of dread that felt almost like relief, that whatever this was, it had stopped being nothing. We didn't talk for 4 days after that. Not a fight. Nothing so clean as a fight. Just a quiet that stretched between us like something neither of us wanted to be the one to break, in case breaking it meant admitting why it was there. She texted on the 5th day. "Bad week. You up for company, or is that a terrible idea?" I looked at that message for a long time before I answered. Long enough to know that saying yes wasn't really about the company. "Come over," I wrote back anyway. She showed up with a bottle of wine and none of her usual ease. There was something unsteady in her that night, something she wasn't saying, and it took 2 glasses before it came out. Her ex-husband had remarried. She'd found out from a mutual friend, the way you always find out the things that hurt the most, secondhand and unprepared. "I thought I was past it," she said, staring at the wine instead of at me. 2 years, and I thought I'd built something solid enough that this wouldn't still be able to knock me over. You're allowed to still feel it. I don't want to feel it. I want to be someone who's already healed. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. Isn't that stupid? Wanting the wound gone before it's actually done healing. It's not stupid. It's just not how it works. She looked at me then, really looked, in the way she'd been careful not to for 4 days. "When did you get so wise about wounds?" I'm getting a crash course. That got the laugh out of her, finally. Small, but real. And something in the room eased. I put a record on, an old one. Something Carol and I used to dance to in a kitchen very much like this one, a lifetime ago. And I didn't think about why I'd chosen that particular song until the first notes were already out in the air and it was too late to take them back. Renee went still. "I remember this one." "You would. You were there the night we—" I stopped. "The night you two got engaged." She said it softly, no edge in it, just memory. I was there. I remember thinking I'd never seen 2 people look so sure of anything. Feels like a long time ago. It was. She stood, crossing to where I was, and held out her hand. Not a question exactly, more like an old reflex neither of us examined too closely. "Dance with me." I should have said no. I know that now, standing on this side of it. But in that kitchen, with the wine and the song, and 4 days of not talking behind us, no wasn't anywhere in reach. I took her hand. We didn't say much, moving slow in that small space between the table and the counter, and the room got quiet in the particular way rooms get quiet, right before something changes shape for good. Her hand was warm in mine. Her other hand found my shoulder, light at first. Then, not light at all. Daniel, my name, barely more than breath. Yeah. Tell me to stop. I didn't tell her to stop. Her hand moved from my shoulder to the side of my face, slow, like she was giving me every chance to pull away before she got there, and I didn't take a single one of them. The space between us, the space that had been closing for weeks without either of us naming it, closed the rest of the way. The kiss was soft and brief, and it undid something in me that I don't think I can properly put into words even now. For one suspended second, there was no house, no phone that might ring with Carol's name on it, no 24 years, no best friend, no wife. Just the two of us, and a song that used to belong to someone else's beginning. Then it ended, and the whole world came rushing back in at once. We stepped apart at the same moment, like we'd rehearsed it, like some instinct in both of us had been waiting to slam the door the second it opened. Renee's hand went to her mouth. Mine went to the back of a kitchen chair, gripping it like it was the only solid thing left in the room. "Oh, God," she said. "Oh, God, Daniel." I know. I have to go. She was already reaching for her purse, her keys, moving too fast, not looking at me. I shouldn't have. I need to go. Renee, don't. She stopped at the door, her back to me, her shoulders rigid. Please don't say anything right now. I can't. I need to think. The door closed behind her, softer than I expected, given everything. I stood alone in my kitchen, the record still turning, the needle hissing in the run-out groove, and I didn't move for a long time. I thought about calling Carol. I thought about calling Renee. I thought about the 24 years sitting behind me and the 4 minutes that had just, somehow, put every single one of them in question. I didn't call anyone. I just stood there, in the silence after the silence, and let myself feel exactly how much I hadn't wanted that kiss to end. I woke to my phone buzzing on the nightstand, and for one merciful second, before memory caught up with me, I didn't remember why my chest already ached before I'd even opened my eyes. Then it came back, all at once, the way bad mornings do. The text was from Carol, feeling good about things. Coming home this weekend. Can we talk? I think I finally know what I want. I read it 3 times. 4. I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in both hands like it might go off again, like it might explain itself, and all I could think was, she doesn't know. She has no idea what happened in the kitchen she used to dance in. I typed, "Sounds good," and deleted it. Typed, "Can't wait to see you," and deleted that too. In the end, I sent, "Okay, let's talk." 4 words that felt like the only honest thing I could manage, though even those weren't honest. Not really, because I couldn't tell her the whole truth in a text message any more than I could tell it to myself out loud yet. Renee didn't call. I didn't call her either. We let a full day pass in the kind of silence that has weight to it, that sits in a room even when you're alone in it. She showed up on my porch the next evening, unannounced, and when I opened the door, neither of us said hello. We just stood there, the space between us smaller than it had ever been, and somehow more impossible to cross than before. "I've been thinking," she said finally, "about what we do now." "So have I. I don't have an answer." "I might." She stepped inside when I moved aside for her, but she didn't sit down, didn't take off her coat, like some part of her wanted to be ready to leave the second this conversation went somewhere she couldn't stand. "We don't have to tell her." The words landed heavier than I expected. "Renee, I'm serious, Daniel. It was one moment, one night, A bad week. Too much wine. An old song. It doesn't have to be the thing that ends everything. Carol's coming home. She wants her marriage. You clearly still, her voice caught just slightly. You clearly still want yours too, or you wouldn't look the way you looked when you read that text. We could just let it be something that happened, not something that has to happen again. You're asking me to lie to my wife. I'm asking you to protect her. There's a difference. She finally sat, perched on the edge of the couch like she wasn't sure she'd stay. I'm not proud of this, Daniel. I've spent 2 days hating myself, but I keep landing in the same place. Telling her doesn't undo it. It just makes her carry it too. I sat across from her, close enough to see she meant every word, and far enough that I understood, with a strange, cold clarity, that this was the actual choice. Not the kiss, not the wine, not the song. This, right here. What I did with it now. And us? I asked. What happens to whatever this is if I say yes to burying it? Something flickered across her face. Grief, maybe, or relief, or both at once. Then it goes back to being nothing. I go back to being Carol's friend. You go back to being her husband. And what happened in that kitchen stays in that kitchen forever, and neither of us ever says another word about it. Can you actually do that? She didn't answer right away, and the silence told me more than any answer could have. I don't know, she said finally, but I think I have to try. For her, for you, if you still want your marriage. She stood, pulling her coat tighter around herself like armor. The question isn't really whether I can live with pretending, Daniel. The question is whether you can. She left without waiting for an answer, and I sat alone in the living room until the streetlights came on outside, turning the choice over and over in my hands like something I couldn't put down and couldn't hold either. Carol would be home in 2 days. She'd walk through that door, believing her marriage was a clean slate, ready to be rebuilt on whatever new understanding her months away had given her. And I would either let her believe that, or I would hand her a truth that might undo everything she'd just found the strength to want again. I thought about the 4 words I'd sent her. Okay, let's talk. I hadn't known, when I typed them, just how much weight they were going to have to carry. Carol came home on a Saturday, and the house did that thing again. Got loud in a different way this time, full instead of empty, her suitcase in the hallway, her perfume in the air before she'd even set her purse down. "It's good to be back," she said, and she meant it. I could see that she meant it, in the way her shoulders had dropped, in the ease that had settled into her face over 3 months of pottery classes and small apartments, and whatever else she'd needed to find out there. I missed this house. I missed you. I missed you too. True. Simply, uncomplicatedly true. And it startled me a little, how true it still was, underneath it everything. She hugged me, and I held on longer than I meant to, my face against her hair. And for one unguarded second, I let myself believe this could be enough, that the truth could stay exactly where Renee had left it, folded up small in a kitchen we didn't dance in anymore. We talked that night, the way she'd asked to. She told me what the months away had given her, a sense of herself outside of wife and mother, a reminder that she'd chosen this life once and wanted now to choose it again, freely, instead of just falling back into its shape out of habit. "I don't want space anymore," she said, her hand over mine on the kitchen table. A different table, though it was the same table, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking that. "I want this. I want you. I think I needed to leave it to be sure of that." This was my opening. I felt it arrive, sharp and clear, the exact shape of the moment Renee and I had talked about on the couch 2 nights before. I could open my mouth right now and say, "Something happened while you were gone. I need you to know. because I don't want this marriage rebuilt on something I'm hiding from you." I looked at her, steady, hopeful, finally home in more ways than one. And I thought about what that truth would do to her. Not just the fact of it, but the specific cruelty of who it involved. Not a stranger, not someone she'd never have to see again. Renee, her oldest friend, the one who'd stood beside her at our wedding, the one she'd call first with good news and worse news for the next 20 years, if I let her keep the chance to. "Daniel," she was watching my face, "you went somewhere." "Just thinking about how glad I am you're home," I said. It wasn't a lie exactly. It also wasn't the whole truth, and I felt the difference settle into my chest, like something with a shape and a weight. Something I understood I was going to be carrying. Quietly. For a long time. I chose to bury it. 2 weeks later, Carol invited Renee to dinner. A proper one, the three of us, like old times. And I stood at the stove with my back to both of them, listening to Carol laugh at something Renee had said. And I understood, with a clarity that felt almost physical, that I hadn't ended anything by staying quiet. I'd only agreed to live inside it. Renee caught my eye once, across the kitchen, while Carol was reaching into the fridge for the wine. Just a glance, brief, careful, gone as fast as it came. But it carried everything neither of us had said out loud since that night. I'm still here. This isn't finished just because we decided not to talk about it. "To being home," Carol said, lifting her glass, her whole face lit with a happiness I had chosen, deliberately, to protect. "To being home," Renee echoed, and her eyes found mine again over the rim of her glass, just for a second, just long enough. I lifted my glass and drank, and told myself the same thing I'd been telling myself for 2 weeks, that I'd done this to protect Carol, that the marriage was safe now, that this was the end of it. I didn't believe myself even as I thought it. Some choices I was learning don't close a door behind them. They just teach you to live very carefully in a house where one door never quite shuts all the way. Autumn turned into winter, and the house filled back up with the ordinary music of a marriage, dishes clinking, the television murmuring in the next room, Carol humming under her breath while she watered the plants she'd missed most while she was away. From the outside, and even from the inside on most days, it looked like a marriage that had survived something and come back stronger for it. Nobody looking in would have guessed what it was actually standing on. Renee and I settled into a careful new choreography, never alone together, never quite meeting each other's eyes for more than a second. Both of us fluent now, in the particular art of being close without being close. At dinners, at holidays, at the small gatherings that make up a life shared between 2 old friends and 1 husband, we managed it. We got good at it, in the way people get good at things they wish they'd never had to learn. But it never went back to nothing. She'd been right about that, and wrong about the rest. She'd said it would go back to being nothing, and instead, it became a third presence in the house. Quiet, unspoken, always at the table with us. There's a particular kind of loneliness in choosing not to tell the truth to someone you love. Nobody warns you about that part. You think the hard part is the moment itself, the kiss, the choice, the walking away from it. But the hard part turns out to be every ordinary Tuesday after. Every time Carol reaches for my hand across the table, and I feel the small, private flinch of a man holding a secret he swore he'd carry alone, and finding out that alone is heavier than he expected. I watched Carol get happier, month by month, settling back into the shape of a life she'd chosen freely this time. And some nights, I let myself believe that was worth it, that her happiness, undisturbed, was worth what I was carrying, so she'd never have to. Other nights, lying awake beside her, I wasn't sure I believed that at all. I wasn't sure protecting her wasn't just another word for protecting myself. In March, almost a year after that night in the kitchen, Renee told me she was moving. A job 2 states away. A fresh start, she said. Though she looked at me a beat too long when she said the word fresh, and I understood it wasn't really about the job. "It's better this way," she said, the last time we were alone together, in the driveway, boxes already loaded into her car. "For both of us. For her." "Yeah," I said. "Probably. Take care of her, Daniel." Her voice caught, just slightly, on my wife's name. "She deserves every good thing you have left to give her." I watched her taillights disappear down the street for the second time in a year, and this time, something in me understood. It really was the end of it, not because we'd resolved anything, but because some things end simply by running out of road. I never told Carol. I've made peace, as much peace as a man can make, with the idea that I'll carry that kitchen, that song, that one unfinished second, for the rest of my life, quietly, the way you carry any weight you've decided is yours alone to bear. What I understand now, that I didn't understand the night Carol first told me she needed space, is that a marriage isn't a single choice you make once at an altar, and then simply keep. It's 1,000 small choices made over and over, most of them invisible, most of them never spoken aloud. And some of those choices, the ones you make in silence, cost you just as much as the ones you make out loud. Maybe more, because no one else ever gets to share the weight of them with you. I chose my wife. I choose her still, every ordinary day since. But I've learned there's a difference between a marriage that was never tested and one that was, quietly, privately, in a kitchen with a song playing and a line I let myself cross, and survived anyway, not because nothing happened, but because I decided, every day after, that what we had was still worth protecting, even at the cost of the whole truth. Some nights that feels like love. Other nights, it just feels like the price of it.